We are very much in the quietest time for the NFL offseason. Nothing's going on, but thankfully, Mike Florio has come along with a pro football talk post off-season power ranking that we can talk about today. I'm going to run through team at number 32 all the way to number 1, give my thoughts. Please give me your thoughts in the comment section as well. Before we get started, I'm a big fan of good films, as you can see from the hat. Top Gun Maverick, watched it a year ago, loved it. One of my favorite films. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. Grew up on films like Terminator 2, Aliens. My dad let us rent RoboCop when I was about 9 years old. So that's the kind of film that I like. Action film, just getting on with it, good stuff like that. Today I watched Extraction 2 with Chris Hemsworth. It is on Netflix. Go and check it out. The more people go and check out films like that, no politics, nothing, just 2 hours of entertainment. The more people who watch films like that, the more films they'll make like that. So please go and check it out. If you've got a Netflix account, just give it a try. Give Extraction 1 a try as well. It's a good film. I think we will all benefit from having more films like that. And without further ado, I'm going to put my movie critic hat to one side. We'll get on with the power rankings. So here we go. This is what Florio's got. We'll start with the Cardinals at 32. I think everybody thinks they're going to be the worst team in the NFL. Incredibly dysfunctional. Kyler Murray's not going to be healthy for a long time. So they've got a distinct chance of picking first overall next year. That's a bit of an issue. The USC quarterback is a legit quarterback prospect. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick next year. And fear that. If that happens, and if he ends up in the NFC West, he's going to be a problem moving forward. He's very, very good. I've watched all of the quarterbacks who are eligible for next year, who are being touted, and nobody else comes close to the USC quarterback. So if I was to suggest anything, by all means, hope that the Cardinals are going to be awful next year, especially when they play the Seahawks. But perhaps root for Kyler Murray coming back and having a few wins at the end of the year to get him away from the number 1 overall pick. Texans at 31. I think this is too low for the Texans. I think they've got some good young talent. I think CJ Stroud, he'll be inconsistent as a rookie, but I think he will eventually settle down and come good. I think D'Amico Ryans will get them playing and competing. I do not think they're going to be the second worst team in the NFL. Neither do I think the Colts are going to be anywhere near the third worst team in the NFL. Yes, I know Anthony Richardson's raw and people will look at that, but he's also an incredible athlete. And this is the thing that, he's going to take some time. He's going to be inconsistent as a rookie, and that there are going to be some games where he struggles. But he's also such a physical specimen that he is going to make up for a lot of those early struggles, and he's going to help them win a lot of football games. I think they've got a good roster, not a great roster, but a good roster. They don't play in a tough division, so I think they're going to be a lot better than the third worst team in the NFL, and I would not rank them this low in a power ranking. Bears at 29. I think this is about fair for them. They are still in a rebuild. Justin Fields can run. Good athlete. I still think there's way too many turnovers. I don't think the supporting cast around him is good enough yet. I don't think they have a defense good enough to sort of prop that up. So I think this is the kind of range they're going to be in. The Rams at 28. I'd probably have them lower than this. I'd seriously consider putting the Rams at 31, quite frankly. What is the future of Matt Stafford? Does he have a future in the NFL? Can he stay healthy? I'm not too sure. They've lost some good players, and they've got Cooper Kupp and they've got Aaron Donald, and that's really good. But they're a shell of a roster apart from that. And, Donald's had a few health issues last season. Kupp has as well. Like I say, who knows what's going to happen with Matt Stafford? I don't fear for the Rams because I couldn't give a toss whether they play well or not because they're a division rival. But, you kind of get what I'm trying to say there. I don't think they're going to be very good. Raiders at 27. Florio puts it already feels like it could be another long year, and he's put it perfectly. Falcons, he says it all comes down to Desmond Ridder. Again, this is the kind of range I'd probably put the Falcons. I don't think Desmond Ridder is going to be good enough. I think we're going to get to the end of next season and people are going to be talking about how can the Falcons get a better quarterback. They've got a lot of flashy skill players, but the defense lacks stars. I don't think Ridder's a difference maker, and I don't think the supporting cast in terms of those skilled players can be good enough to make him look amazing. So I think they're in the right spot. Panthers at 25, I think they're going to be better than this. Again, with CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, I think there may be some growing pains with Young, but I think once he works things out a little bit and settles down, then I think that he could be a very good player. And I think he will be able to point guard his way. He's very naturally talented. I think he'll be able to point guard his way to having more success than this ranking suggests they have a good roster. They've got a blossoming O-line. They've added some weapons in free agency in the draft. They've got some talent. I would expect them to be better than 25th in the power ranking. I'd have them a little bit higher than this. I'd certainly have them higher than 24 Commanders. I don't really get the Commanders. I don't understand what's happening. You know, they've gone and got Eric Bieniemy, and maybe he felt like he needed a change. But is he good enough to put an offense together without Patrick Mahomes or an Alex Smith type? I can't really understand how Sam Howell has ended up being the guy they're just kind of going to roll into next season with the Commanders. It almost seems a little bit like the franchise is in a boring holding pattern now, where Ron Rivera's days are numbered, where there's probably a few players whose days are numbered on the roster as well. They just want to get the ownership situation sorted, and then the new owners bring in their own coach and their own vision and stuff like that. And for that reason, I'd probably have the Commanders lower than this. Can they be competitive? Yeah. Can Ron Rivera make them competitive enough to flirt with 7 to 8 wins? Yeah. But I think in terms of, I just think there's a bit more excitement about teams like the Panthers, for example, and even the Colts for that matter, that I really struggle to put. I mean, if Sam Howell sucks, then they're going to be a bad team. Broncos at 23, probably this feels like they're in the right kind of spot. I think the Broncos are going to be better than some people think. Sean Payton is a quality coach. They do have some good players on that roster. I wouldn't. I know a lot of people have written Russell Wilson off. I wouldn't bet against him having a bounce back year with a proper coach, new culture in that team, and playing to his strengths, which is what Payton will do, but will also know when to sort of take control and not let Russ basically run everything. I can see this being a bounce back year for the team and the quarterback because of the head coach. So I think there's a chance the Broncos will be higher than this, but I think it's an understandable place to put them in a power ranking until Browns at 22. I agree with Florio. He says the Browns could go either way this year. Much will depend on what Deshaun Watson does. I thought Deshaun Watson looked like a bunch of crap last season when he came back. I know there's a lot of ring rust there, but to me, it just feels he feels like a little bit of a busted flush. Like he had that flourish at the start of his career, and then all of the drama that's self-inflicted by allegedly there. It just seems like you can't go away from football and just come back and switch it on like that. And I think the pressure of the contract and the compensation is an issue there. I feel a little bit for Browns fans. They deserve better than this, but I do think this is going to be this could be a really frustrating year for them, where Watson might show a few flashes of his best, but that might be later in the season when it's too late. So, yeah, I think this is kind of fair. Patriots at 21, this feels fair as well. The Patriots just feel like a boring team these days. There's just nothing to get excited about. Buccaneers at 20, I think they're going to be worse than this. This feels like a team without any real direction right now. That Tom Brady legitimized them. They've got some older players. They've got some players who've had injury issues. They've got some players who probably would rather go and play for a contender, a legit contender. I don't think Baker Mayfield is good enough. They've got an offensive coordinator who's never done the job before. And when you have a defensive-minded head coach, you really need a quality offensive coordinator. Part of me wonders a little bit whether with 5 games to go, could you see the head coach going and the offensive coordinator going and Bruce Arians coming back? Possibly. I just think they're going to be a bad team next year. And I think it's generous. I just think they're in a transition period from that sort of brief, fleeting Brady era to probably rebuild, which is around the corner. Saints at 19. They're a tough one to work out. Not convinced by the head coach. Not convinced that the roster's as good as perhaps the team front office at least thinks it is. Think they've got holes in a few spots there. Some of the better players have seen better days, and I think Derek Carr's an overrated quarterback. So I would probably have Panthers ahead of them, frankly, and the Broncos. and the Colts. Packers at 18. Florio thinks they'll be better without Aaron Rodgers than many believe. I don't think Jordan Love's very good, and I'm not sure I agree. I think they're going to struggle a bit with him at quarterback, but we'll see. And I don't think that roster's that good. I think what we might actually find out is that Aaron Rodgers is better than people think, or maybe people have forgotten how good he is. Because when he's at his best and he's playing and he feels comfortable and you can play to his ego, let's not forget that before last season he was the MVP back-to-back years, the way that he played. Titans at 17. They're in a transition from the old guard roster to a new approach. I agree with that. I think they could be worse than this. I don't think they're in a good place. You know, all the talk of trading Derrick Henry and then nobody bit on that, and it's the Antonio Brown. Well, I have no idea where Antonio Brown came from. AJ Brown trade has backfired spectacularly. I don't know. I like the coach, and they have obviously some good players, but I don't know. Is Tannehill good enough at this point in his career? I'm not sure. Seahawks at 16. Florio says they're moving in the right direction and could be a real factor this year. I would have the Seahawks higher than 16. I accept that there are question marks about the defensive line and the run defense and the defense in general, but I think they have an incredibly complete offense. And yes, there is a question mark as to whether, can Geno Smith be more consistent? I don't think he necessarily has to be as good as he was in the first half of last season when he was gaining some MVP traction. He can play a little bit below that standard, but he needs to play a bit higher than the standard that he was playing at the end of the season. If he can find a consistent run there, and with the weapons that he has on offense, I think for that reason you put them higher than some of the teams that are coming up. And I'm going to explain where I would have the Seahawks as we go through, because I'm just going to tick these teams off now that I think I would have the Seahawks higher than. So the Vikings, I would have the Seahawks ahead of the Vikings, who were 15th. Because they seem to have just, kind of be reloading a little bit. Justin Jefferson's obviously a world-class player, but the defense is crap. Kirk Cousins is, his statistically was very similar to Geno Smith. I think the Seahawks have a far more complete offense, and both teams have question marks about the defense. So I don't see any reason, apart from the fact they had a better record last year. But then, they weren't in a transition year. Like the Seahawks, so I think the Seahawks will be better than the Vikings next year, and I would have the Seahawks ahead of them in this power ranking. Steelers at 14, I would have the Seahawks ahead of the Steelers easily. I'm not convinced by Kenny Pickett. Obviously, TJ Watt's a good player, but he's had injury concerns. I just think they're a very average team. I don't think they have the offensive weapons that the Seahawks have. I'd say they're a more solid defense they know who they are, but that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything that exciting about them. So I would put the Seahawks ahead of the Vikings and the Steelers. I'd put the Seahawks ahead of the Chargers as well, quite frankly. Joey Bosa is obviously a very good player. They do have some talent on Khalil Max as a bookend if they both stay healthy. They've got weapons on offense. They've got another high pick on the offense. Justin Herbert's obviously a fantastic player. The Seahawks beat the Chargers in LA last year, and they're a really wishy-washy team for me. I just don't think they've done a good enough job bringing the defense together. It's one of those Fangio influenced schemes that just doesn't seem to work. Justin Herbert is a quality quarterback, but I don't think they've put the best supporting cast around him. And again, that game last year when the Seahawks basically beat the Chargers up, I think they're a better team than the Chargers right now. So I would put them ahead of the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Chargers. And the Giants, I'd put them ahead of the Giants as well, quite frankly. Florio himself puts in 12. It feels as if a correction could be coming. Let's not forget the Seahawks handled the Giants in Seattle last year. I think a year ago, if they played that game in New York, it could have been a different result. But I just think, when you match up, the Seahawks got better offensive weapons. I think Geno Smith's better than Daniel Jones. I think the Giants have got better talent up front on the defensive line. But then I think the Seahawks have probably got better players at linebacker and in the secondary. So I actually think if you compare rosters, I think Seattle's better than the Giants right now. And I would have the Seahawks ahead of the Giants as well. So right now I've got the Seahawks all the way up to number 12. And I'm there are going to be teams that I move them ahead of, even still looking ahead here. The Lions. I think the Lions and the Seahawks are quite similar, but I think the Seahawks have had a better off season. I think that the Lions ended last season, I'd say, trending better than Seattle. I don't know if Seattle goes and beats Green Bay in Lambeau, and maybe that's just because over the years Seattle have always been rubbish in Lambeau. But I don't see the Seahawks necessarily going there in a nothing game and knocking off the Packers the way that the Lions did. So I don't know. But I do think that I think they squandered an opportunity with a bad draft. I thought they messed up the first round. I'm not sure they've had the off season that they needed to keep building on the momentum. So I'm not quite sure why they're 11 and like the Seahawks are 16, because I think everybody accepts the Seahawks had a great draft. They've had a good off season and they added an impact defensive lineman, which they needed to do. I don't really look at the Lions and think, wow, they really seriously addressed what they needed to get done in this draft. You know, they basically just traded down and took a running back no one expected to go as high as they did, and then reached on a linebacker. So I like some of their other picks, but still, I would have the Seahawks ahead. I think they're similar, but I would have the Seahawks ahead of the Lions right now. Jets, I wouldn't have the Seahawks ahead of the Jets because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go there and he's got a coordinator he's going to be very comfortable with, he's worked with before. He has got a coach who's going to let him do his thing. So I think that the Jets, I think they're a legit top 10 team. They've got stars in their team on offense and on defense, and I wouldn't necessarily have the Seahawks ahead of them right now. I think I would possibly have the Seahawks ahead of the Cowboys, though. This feels a little like Dak Prescott just ended the season so badly. You know, Dak Prescott ended the season so badly. The offense looks bad. You know, Brian Schottenheimer's back there now. I don't trust Mike McCarthy running the controls for the offense. To me, it just feels like the Cowboys are going stale. Now it's got Micah Parsons, Dan Quinn, a good defensive coordinator. I like the defense. That will make them competitive. Offensively, though, big question marks there. I would debate putting the Seahawks into the Cowboys. I just think they're coming to a point where the Cowboys are going to need some kind of a reset soon. Ravens, I don't rate the Ravens. I don't think they're a top 8 team. You know, Lamar, if he's at his best, is very difficult to stop. He's been paid now. There's too much drama there. They can't get they can't get the passing game going. They fired the coach who made the offense for Lamar and had some success with that. Now they're going a completely different direction. The defense is neither here nor there. I don't think the Ravens are that good, quite frankly. I would have the Ravens below the Cowboys, the Jets, the Lions, the Giants, and the Seahawks. I'd have them further down. I think the Ravens are a middle of the pack team right now. Dolphins, I think, look, Tua, I think there's massive question marks with Tua. But what I will say is loads of weapons, great offensive mind as a head coach, star-studded defense. You can't argue with having them in the top 10. Jaguars at number 6. I think this is too high for the Jaguars. I think you've got to give them an immense amount of credit for what they did last season, but I think this is too high. I think the hype's too much. Bills at 5. Can't argue with that. Would I have the Seahawks ahead of the Jaguars? Possibly not just because they made the playoffs, but I'd be seriously considering that, yes. I wouldn't have them ahead of the Dolphins, but I would have the Seahawks in the top 10. Bills 5th. Yep, you can't argue with that. And look, these are formality. Bengals at 4. I'd probably have the Bengals ahead of the Niners, but I know I would. Niners, I think the quarterback question mark is the big thing. Eagles and Chiefs, 2-1. It is what it is. They were the Super Bowl teams. So there we go. I'd probably put the Seahawks personally in the 8, 9, 10 range right now, just based on the great draft, the depth of the roster on offense, the potential of the defense to take a step forward. If they're going to go higher than that, if they're going to be a legit contender, you know, because I think when you talk about legit contenders, I'd say Bills, Bengals, Niners, Eagles, Chiefs right now. If you want to get into that bracket, you've got to sort the defense out. But I think it speaks to how close the Seahawks are. Another off-season, finding some answers on defense. That's how close they are to being a legit contender. So they're moving in the right direction. That's the best thing. And I don't think you should really expect to put them higher than sort of 8, 9, 10 year 2 into this reset. I think they are in that sort of 8, 9, 10 range, though. And I would have them higher than 16 than Florio. And I think they're trending in the right direction. Like I say, probably just need another off season till we are maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, talking about them overtaking the Niners and getting into that range where they could be a legit contender. So those are my thoughts. What do you think about it? Let me know what you think in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button as well. It really helps promote the channel, as does leaving a comment for the algorithm. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos, and check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Until next time, bye for now.